Okay, this video tutorial is going to show you how to generate the student ID, which is a combination of letters taken from their first name and surname. In this example, it could just be from one of them, depending on the exam, and then a 4-digit number. The 4-digit number is basically the highest, looking at whatever IDs are in the student ID column, and those last 4 digits, adding one, finding the highest one of those, and then adding one onto it. In order to do this, we need to create a query. So we're going to go to the Create tab, Query Design, and once we're at this point, I'm just going to add my sort of students. Actually, no, I don't need to even add that. I'm going to right click, choose Build. I'm going to go to Functions, Built-in Functions, and I want to find the max, which is short for maximum. The XPR is what we want to do. Now, because I need to get my information from my student ID, that is a mixture of letters and numbers, I need to basically manipulate this. So what there is for manipulating text, there are functions called left and right. The right function basically starts at the right hand side, and we can get a certain number of characters. So in this example, I want to get the last 4 digits, so I can put in, instead of the N, I put in the number 4, which will get counted from the right. So going back 1, 2, 3, 4, it would get those last 4. So if I start on this, and then the string expression is where the information is that I want to get from our tables, students. I want to get the student ID. At this point, I'm just going to hit OK and enter just to check it. Okay, what I also need to do is just add the table that I want it to be linked up to. So I'm using students as the basis of this information. Now I can just change and get datasheet view. So what you notice is it's got 2042. If I go into my students table, what we notice is 2042 is the highest number. Now, that's pretty good so far. But what I can also do is, if I manipulate this, I can also add a +1. And this EXPR at the front, this is just the name of it. I'm just going to call it new ID number, makes it easier to find. So now when I've got it, 2043, it's got one higher. Okay, that's that query finished, so you need to save it. Always good to prefix the queries with the name. I use QRY often, just to show it's a query. You might just use Q, personal preference up to you. Next step, we need to add in some extra information. Next one, add student, query new student ID, and I'm going to add that on. I'm going to hit OK, save it. Now we need to add that query onto our student ID. So we're going to go back into design view from this, and we're going to manipulate the control source. Now, there's a few different ways we can do this. We're going to do this probably one of the more complicated ways, but it makes our life a little bit easier later on down the track. And this one involves us having to know exactly what is written in the information and some of the names of our queries. So in this one, I've got query new student ID, so I need to know exactly what that's called. Plus, I also need to know the exact name of this field, so it's new ID number. And I'll leave those sort of open, so it makes my life a little bit easier. And what I want to do is use a function, built-in function, and we've got an option called DLOOKUP, which basically stands for domain lookup. So it means we can just get a certain piece of information from a column. So my domain in this example is where I want to get it from, which is the name of that query. I need to call it query new student ID. And that's why I don't generally have spaces. If you've got spaces, you need to put square brackets around it. But because I don't have any spaces in the names, I don't need to do that. The expression is basically the name of the column. This is where things can often go a little bit wrong. and I don't need to have a criteria because there's only one answer, I just want to match the one. So I'm going to hit OK, press enter. Okay, this one's not quite working, it's got an error that's popping up. So new ID number is what I called it. So I'm going to go back into my design view. So if we have a look at what I typed in here, it's not matching up. It was new ID number. So now if I do this, it's got the actual number. So if any of them are spelled incorrectly, it'll give you that error message and won't show you the number. Now we need to link it up so we can get the two options, the first name and the surname. Now we've already done half of the work sort of similar to this before. Because they're going to go beforehand, I'm going to just put this in front, and we've got this little ampersand symbol. That means append to. So it'll join these together. And I've got my EXPR, I'm going to do my functions, built-in functions. This time I'm going to use the left option. And instead of it being from the table this time, I'm going to go to the form, and I'm going to get the surname box, and let's say we're going to get, say, the first three numbers. And then after that I might do another one. This time we'll just get, say, the first two letters of their first name. But obviously what we're going to look up there is going to change depending on, we've got OK, make sure you press enter, sometimes it doesn't always save it, and we go through. It's going to put the 243, and as I type in other options, it's going to do things. So now that's generated our student ID. That concludes basically how to generate the student ID. The next step is what we're going to be creating a query that will link this up. And so when we click a button, it's going to save.